Trustee Chow. Student trustee Alvarado. Here. Trustee Walker.
Present.
Trustee Gallegos.
Here.
Trustee Tahada. Here. Vice President Salahuddin. Here. President Lee.
Here. All right. Item 8, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Please press the.
We made one change prior yesterday. We just switched the order of the discussion items, and we have education services going before administration. But it's
already.
It's as in, yes.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Great, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. All right. Approval of minutes for both the for item 9A and 9B, the meeting of November 7th and the meeting of November 16th. I'll take one motion for all of these.
Motion to approve the minutes from November 7th and November 16th.
A second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstained from November 16th as I was absent.
All right. And reporting out of closed session, case number 2023-2024/2 settlement agreement was approved for O. And on the other item, the board took action in closed session to reject the government claim of Alejandro Aguilar Hernandez. Right. Item 11A, board report. We will begin with our student trustees. Trustee Schuler, anything to report out?
The Shanna's leadership did just recently go to a retreat for ASB, CATA, very exciting. We learned a lot of new things. We are also planning our winter formal and our next rally. So that.
Okay. Trustee Chow.
Westmore High School also attended our first CATA last week with some other schools, and we are having our food fair this Friday.
Trustee Alvarado.
For Jefferson, we have our first boys soccer game tomorrow. So pretty excited for that. And as far as I know, nothing else. Sorry.
Trustee Walker.
I was pleased to attend our school site meeting at Terranova High School. Even though I live in Pacifica, I seem not to make it over there frequently. So it's nice to be there and to see the staff and administration members who could join us.
Trustee Gallegos.
I have nothing to report tonight.
Okay.
I have nothing to report as well.
Okay. Ms. Alvin.
So I missed the last meeting because I was attending the Courageous Conversations Conference with a couple other members of staff, but I'm back there. Superintendent Presta. And so it was a really good experience to be always around other educators who are in this work. They had really helped me to think about things and re-engage my thinking around some things in a different way. Fantastic to immediately afterwards be able to not only discuss with people at the conference, but other JUHSD staff members. So it was a really good experience, and I'm glad that we were able to go. The other thing I want to talk about is this weekend through the Pacific Islanders Community Partnership, I went to a screening of the goal next. I think I can't remember the name. I shouldn't know the name, but the important thing is that it featured a member of the American Samoa community, Pacific Islander, who's transgender, and was the first transgender person to play in a FIFA soccer match. And so they made a documentary about it, and then they made a movie about it. So they had the screening, and I was able to go, and she was there. So it was just really nice to be at an event where a lot of times when we do things around social justice, it's very specific for certain people of color, and it's not inclusive of all of us. So have an event in a community just like mine, American Black community, another community to where we're not as inclusive of the LGBT community to see not only be embraced, but very celebrated. It's nice. Yeah, next goal wins. Thank you. So that is a movie, but I also suggest the documentary is streaming on Amazon. So the documentary about the American Samoa football team who had the worst loss of any professional soccer match. They lost 31-0. And then the story about them coming back and inclusive of a transgender person who can play sports. And, that's really controversial, but you can see a team that was very inclusive of having that person as part of their team.
Great. Thank you. Coming up this week, we'll be attending the California School Boards Association Annual Education Conference here in San Francisco, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Definitely excited about just the different professional development opportunities that we will have and the different sessions that we will learn. So it's nice to not have to go anywhere other than just across town for us this year. So looking forward to that. Presta.
Thank you.
Wait, hold on. Any board subcommittees to report out?
I do think for the workforce housing, just to talk about the discussions that we've been having about the next steps, because it's becoming more apparent to me how, the building of the housing was just like the first step on the path. And so I'm just really happy about the conversations that we've been having as a team about how we support people, support our staff through the next steps of this. So I think those have been really good conversations.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I want to echo Trustee Salahuddin's remarks about Courageous Conversations Summit. I think this was the 13th or 14th year, and I've wanted to go all of those other years and haven't. And this year I think it was a group of 10 of us. There were 3 of our principals, many staff members, teachers, counselors, paraprofessionals, van drivers. Like, it was a really great group of people that was a diverse group from our district. Everyone is involved on their site equity team. So that was sort of the prerequisite to kind of asking to go. It was a remarkable experience. I think it was very powerful. And as Klima said, the caliber of presenters was really world class, and just very, very thoughtful conversations. And it pushed me in my personal learning and trajectory. And I just really can't say enough about it. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to have us go. Next year, the summit is going to be in Chicago. We may not be able to bring as big of a group because it wasn't, it was pricey. But I do hope that we attend next year. So that was great. And that's why I wasn't at the last board meeting. And so thank you to Deputy Superintendent Van Raphorst for sitting in for me in my absence. The Terra Nova site board meeting, it was a good meeting. I'm really grateful to the staff members and who made it there to talk to us. One thing that stood out to me is that oftentimes at these site board meetings, staff comes and it's a really good opportunity for them to share their thoughts and feelings and concerns with us. And oftentimes those concerns are about their work life. And what I'm noticing is that there's a lot more discussion at these board meetings where the teachers and the staff are really sharing concerns about the students. And I'm unhappy that there are concerns, but I think it just speaks to our school staffs that they're really concerned and that they care about their students. Student advisory meeting was last night. We have a really an excellent group of students, and it's always on. I say this every time, but it's my highlight of the week. Many of them, I think we have 10 student trustees who are going to be attending the California School Board Association conference tomorrow. So they have a whole day that's set up specifically for the student trustees. And so we have a bus that's going to be leaving. Miss Johnson and Miss Tejada from HR are going to be accompanying the students on the school bus at 7:15 in the morning and make sure they get to where they need to go and all registered and checked in and taken care of. So I think it's going to be a great day for the students. I'm really glad that so many are going. And then finally, I too am looking forward to having the CSBA annual education conference at our home in San Francisco. So we can just kind of go there during the day, do our learning, bond with each other and with our with the trustees and superintendents from our neighboring school districts, our partner districts. It's always a good opportunity, but then we get to go home at night. Thank you.
I believe there is no AFT 1481 report this evening. Okay. Very good. All right, moving on to consent. Is there a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Trustee Tejada, do we have any public comment this evening?
We do, but it's for action item 16A1.
Okay, great. All right, then we will move on to discussion items 15A1, the 2023 CASP score update. Deputy Superintendent Baca.
Good evening, President Lee. Good evening, members of the board. So tonight I will be presenting the results of the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress taken during the spring of 2023. So just as a reminder, the CASP system is an umbrella with many different components. It has the California Science Test, the Smarter Balance Assessments for English Language Arts and Math, and the California Alternate Assessments for students with severe cognitive disabilities. There's also the Spanish reading for language arts, but that is optional, and we did not administer that. Last year, fewer than 11 students were designated to take the alternate assessments, so scores were suppressed to protect the privacy of students. So for tonight's presentation, I will be sharing scores from the Smarter Balance Assessments in English and Math and the California Science Test. And as a reminder, there are 4 achievement levels for students. It's standard exceeded, standard met, standard nearly met, and standard not met. And the goal target for each student is that they achieve at least a standard met or standard exceeded. So the Smarter Balance Assessment is an annual measure of what students know and can do using the Common Core standards for ELA and math. All grade levels 3 through 8 and grade 11 take the Smarter Balance Assessments unless they're designated to take the alternate assessments. So the students who took these assessments are now seniors. And just as a context, the last time that they took the Smarter Balance Assessment was in 7th grade, and that they started 9th grade with us in distance learning. So with that, the scores for English language arts is 56% of the students met or exceeded standards, which is a decline of 6.35 percentage points from the year before. And for math, 30.58% of students met or exceeded standard, which is a slight decline of 0.7 from 2022. And I'd like to point out that these percentages and scores are based on students with only valid scores. So students who opted out, students who had an emergency and they weren't able to finish the assessment, or the ones who just logged in and then logged back out, they're not part of this percentage. So here's the comparison with the state and other county schools. As you can see, JUHSD scored below the 11th grade students in the San Mateo County and above, slightly above the state of California. One good news is that our participation rate increased from 91% last year or the year before to 93.4%. So I want to give a shout out to Dr. Robinson, the Ed Services assistants, and the vice principals who really pushed and hounded the students to make sure that they take these assessments. So here are the scores by student groups across 3 years. The green bar is pre-COVID. The purple bar was from 2022, and the orange bar was from last year. So student groups that increased from 22 to 23 were Asian, Filipino, and 2 or more. Student groups that declined were Hispanic, white, English learner, socioeconomically disadvantaged students, and students with IEP. This chart also shows the performance gap between African American and Hispanic students with Asian students. Here's another way to look at the proficiency gaps across from when we administered the assessment in 2015. And as you can see, there's a persistent gap between Black and Hispanic students compared with Asian students. So the bottom line are the African American students, and then the Hispanic, and the pink one are the Asian students. So here are charts that showed achievement gaps by student groups. So there was a significant decline for students that are classified as low socioeconomically status. It was from 52% to about 37%. So that's a 15% decline. And in addition, the gap between the low SES and the not so low SES have increased. For students with disabilities, there was also a slight decrease of scores, and the gap decreased slightly. And for English learners, fewer English learners met standard or exceeded from about 9% to 4%. Now for math, the trend is very similar to the language arts. So 30.58% met or exceeded standards. And again, just like the ELA, we're below the county and slightly above the state of California. And participation rate also increased. And here is the 3-year trend for each student group, very similar again to the ELA results, where Asian, Filipino, and 2 or more increased, while Hispanic, white, EL, socioeconomically disadvantaged students decreased. And again, just as the English assessment, there's a huge gap between the scores of African American and Hispanic students with Asian students. Here's the trend from 2015. As you can see, the gaps predate the pandemic, and it keeps, it's pretty much the same. And as you can see, there are no dots for 2019, 2022 for African Americans because we did not have enough students take the assessment. Here is the graph that shows achievement gap by student groups. So for socioeconomically disadvantaged, again, it decreased, and also the gap widened. Same trend for students with IEP. And for our students learning English, basically the gap remains about the same, and the scores remain relatively the same too. Here are the results for each of the schools. So with the exception of Thornton High School, the scores for English language arts declined. And for math, Westmore, Jefferson, Oceana slightly increased. Now for science. So another part of the CASP is the California Science Test. So this assessment, students can demonstrate what they know about the next generation science standards. And it focuses on concepts of earth science, life science, and physical science. And the requirement is that this test is given to grades 5, 8, and once in high school. And so I want to give you a little context about this in a little bit on the different grade levels that this test was given to. But before that, 33.76% scored met or exceeded, lower again than the county and higher than the state's average. Here's the trends by group. Filipino students Filipino and students with IEP increased while the other groups decreased. And again, a wide gap exists between African American and Hispanic students with Asian students. So as I mentioned earlier, students take the CAST once before they leave high school. So before COVID, the CAST was administered to all 11th graders. And then COVID happened and we had to catch up and give it to the 12th graders. And because of administrative staffing changes and their capacity, last year, the assessment was given to multiple grade levels. The real intent is for the students to take the assessment like right when they're finishing their last year of science. Because science is a 2-year requirement for graduation, all of our students finish 2 years, and some take 3 years or 4 years as an elective. And so as you can see, Terra Nova wanted to see and thought that, well, maybe if they administer the assessment in the 10th grade where, science is still fresh, they would score much higher. And so they gave it to their 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade students. For Jefferson, 12th graders had to take it, but they also wanted to reset. So they said, okay, we'll give it to the 11th graders. Same thing for Oceana. Thornton only has an 11th and 12th grader, so they gave it to their seniors, and then Westmore decided to give it to their seniors. And interesting data came up where the 12th grade students did better than the other grade levels. This is the first year we've done this. So what we want to see is if we do this again, will really be the 12th grade, the year to give the assessment. The science test is not part of the dashboard yet. And so there's much less accountability. And so we're trying to still calibrate and talk with our teachers and administrators and trying to really figure out what would be the best path to administer the California science test. So some key takeaways, ELA scores and math declined from the previous year, but they are above the state average. The proficiency gaps is very persistent from the very beginning that we administered the assessment. For science, 12th grade students outperformed those in lower grade levels. And proficiency levels for students learning English, students with disabilities, students with low socioeconomic status declined from the previous year. So I know that the scores are pretty disappointing, but we need to remember that CAST is only one slice of data in measuring student performance. In January, I will be presenting the dashboard results. And from the initial preview, we made gains, especially in the areas for our students learning English. And also in February, I will be presenting the mid-year LCAP report where there are some gains in the college and career area. With that, we really need to continue focusing on the professional learning community work of our teachers, where they work on their student friendly learning objectives. In addition, our teachers and administrators need to continue their training on universal design learning so that they can help teachers, help students how to become expert learners. And lastly, because the Smarter Balance is only really administered in the 11th grade, it's really hard to see progress. So we can't see whether the students performed year after year. We really strongly recommend that the district administer the benchmark assessment through Renaissance that's given 3 times a year. And we can also compare the growth from 1 year after the other. And lastly, we need to make sure that we create an engaging and welcoming environment for our students so that they want to come to school every day. Because when I looked at the student data results, a lot of the students that did not perform very well, had very high chronic absenteeism rate. And that is it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for the presentation of the data. Opening it up to both student and adult trustees on questions and comments.
I only have one question, just kind of a silly question, but the testing that they're giving these students is it based on the curriculums, or are the curriculums based on the tests? How does that work? How do they
It's
assess them?
based on the standards set forth, the Common Core standards. And what our teachers do is pull out some essential learning target skills. And that's what they've been using for their, when they talked about the blue sheets
Yeah.
last year. So that's basically what it is, which are the learning objectives.
So do the teachers know what these assessments are going to be based on so that they can target that curriculum, or
They know the standards.
they
and
know the standards?
They know the standards and the
Right.
skills. And this test is also, part of it is adaptive.
Mhm.
And so some of it really depends on what the students know. So they start at the medium level. And if they get the next question right, it progressively gets harder. And then if not, it gets a little easier. And then finally it calibrates like, okay, this is the student's score, like based on those skills given on the test.
Thank you.
So I had a question, and so to your last point, it would be interesting to see this cross-reference with attendance.
Mhm.
I mean, it goes without saying, you can't teach somebody anything if they're not in class. So it would be interesting to see this cross-reference with attendance. The other question I had was, it's still administered via computer solely?
Yes.
And the comment that I have is, when I look through this, it's always disappointing to me. Because I know everyone works really hard and they receive the tests. No one is happy with the levels that we are performing at in regards to just these tests. The math scores are the scores that continue to get most of my attention because 30% proficiency that's chronically low. So just hearing at some point or having a discussion about what the plan is outside of just professional learning on what we can do. I think another thing for me is the lack of connection that we currently have with parents, that we communicate, but it's a one-way communication, emails being sent out. And so, is there a way that we can talk to parents about issues that we're having about math and seeing if we can get some feedback on how we can help support students? Because for me, math is critical thinking. And I want students to be able to, one, not have a fear of math and the whole stigma around math, but two, math teaches you a lot of really good critical thinking skills, and which I think are key and important, especially with jobs in this part of the Bay Area. And that's not just, I'm not just talking about science-based or other, but also jobs that people don't think have a lot to do with math. But there's a lot of jobs through our unions and through other labor partners where students are surprised that you need some pretty good math skills or some basic algebra skills to be able to work in those jobs. So I don't want, and so I'm like, how do we make that connections? How do we make math real? So that some of the stigma gets taken away and there is some stake in the game in wanting to engage in it. And then the other question that I had, and I didn't ask ahead, so we don't have to discuss it here, but just, I know that COVID caused a huge break in our assessing the changes that we've had in our math structure and the success or things that have come out of that. But have we seen has the way we have changed the structure of math, is that helping? Because I know the lack of success in other school districts is, there's this lawsuit that's happening now in San Francisco Unified for people to have a switch back.
Having math course
Yeah.
one, math course two,
Yeah.
yeah, rather than algebra, geometry.
Exactly. So if they're, have we been able to look back and see, yes, this has actually helped, or was the break in COVID hard? And I know it's really hard to judge momentum, especially since we've been teaching a certain way for decades, and then you make a change and if it doesn't work right away, everyone wants you to change back. But just wondering if we've had any success in the area, if we've seen anything that has made any improvement since there was a huge effort to move over to the different way and format of math. So those are the only comments that I have. And again, I just want to reiterate that these are hard, but it doesn't take away from the work. And this is a one-day snapshot, but we have, I like to pay attention to all the data. So I just don't want people to feel bad about the work that we've done.
Yes, we'll definitely look into analyzing the math pathway and see if we've made any gains.
And I know we're going to be talking about equity, but, and it doesn't need to be said, but the proficiency gaps continue to be a big problem. That I wish that we could be showing some impact there, but it's a larger problem. I have a whole lot of different pieces that are involved in it, but it continues to be informal. I'm sorry, I'm really tired because I've had a long day. It continues to be at the top of mind.
Trustee Alvarado.
Yeah, so I would like to agree on one point you made, where students have to feel like welcoming and comfortable in school. Because believe it or not, many students have problems at home. So it's like really difficult having problems at home and at school. It's like they have nowhere to feel comfortable in. But if like the schools have a good environment, a place where they feel comfortable and welcome, it's more probably that they will like pay attention, be excited to learn, and especially like teachers reflect that energy, like they're excited too, and they help them out if they need help. So in my experience, I feel very welcome and comfortable in my school. I believe we have really good counselors that would like check in and help if we need help. So I just wanted to agree with you.
Thank you. That has been one of our priority when we do our walkthroughs in the classroom. You'll see us quite often visiting classrooms, and student engagement and a welcoming environment is something that we are looking for.
Any other comments?
I
Mr. Walker?
have just a couple questions. I think you mentioned something called, sorry, thank you. I like looking at these numbers. I feel like I know more. You mentioned, I think, something called Smarter Balance
Yes.
and something called Renaissance.
Yes.
What are those?
So Smarter Balance is the test that they take. So I don't know what it was a long time ago. Well, it was a STAR, but before the STAR, it's like one of those achievement tests that they take. It's standardized test. And Renaissance is a company, and they have these assessments that students can take to basically see where they are in their skills. So you can see like growth. So because Smarter Balance is only given basically in the 11th grade, we want to test our 9th grade students, our 10th grade, and our 11th to see, if we are seeing growth. Because like what Trustee Salahuddin said, or Vice President Salahuddin said, it's a snapshot. It's a one-day assessment. And we are being judged right and left with this just one assessment. And so we want to be able to say that, yes, this is one assessment, but here are our Renaissance scores and our students are actually making progress.
May I add to that?
Yeah.
May I add to the answer? Would you pull up from your presentation the umbrella, please? If you look at the umbrella, so the CASP system is the whole system. It's the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress. That's the whole system. And there's a bunch of different tests that are in there. Smarter Balanced is the one, like the test that we all think of when our students are taking the regular assessment test. So that's just one part of it. It's under the ELA and mathematics section. And then you also have alternate assessments as well. And then you've got the science strand and the Spanish and reading language arts. But so that's the Smarter Balanced in there. I was going to say one other thing and I forgot. So that's it.
And I was gonna say to Ms. Baca's point, why I think the Renaissance is key or good for us to do is that we don't really, this test doesn't show us how much a teacher taught the student in a given year. Right. So if we had the spot testing, so we had it in ninth grade, then we know where the student is when they arrive. So this test is not showing, a teacher could have brought a student from like a 5th grade level all the way up to an 8th or 9th or 10th grade level, but they're still testing below standard, but it doesn't show the work that a teacher could have done. So it's one snapshot, but it's not a full picture. So how do we get other things in place so that we can get a picture?
May I add some more? So along those lines, when you have, I guess 3rd grade on up to 8th grade, even though it's just once a year, the students are taking that test once a year. So you can compare cohorts, right? You can look at when you're in 2nd grade, when you're in 3rd grade, your 4th grade, you can see the class as it goes. When you're just doing it in 11th grade, you can't see that. It's literally a random snapshot. Even in those lower grades, you should have formative assessments. You should have the interim assessments throughout the year so you can see the progress. But it becomes, I think, even more important at the high school level to do that because you really can't rely on the data to be very reliable. So I'm glad that we're doing it. And our district didn't always do them. This is just the last, how many years? Just the last
2 years?
Yeah, 2 years. So it's really, I'm very pleased. I'm very proud of us that we are doing this work because you have to be tracking student achievement, in a real way.
Just a comment. Thank you for doing this. And I think, so the scores that the students take when they're like the STAR test, when they're coming up through the school system, does that follow them in their files?
Yes. So in actually parent view and student view right now, parents and students would be able to see their scores when they took it in the 6th grade, the 7th grade, and so on. So forth.
I don't know how they adopt it. Just curious.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the, excuse me. Thank you for the presentation. And the one thing that I'm just kind of, look at this, I think I share our collective concerns about where these are from this one moment in time. And I think the thing that actually gives me a little bit of hope is the fact that I'm kind of viewing this almost as still a little bit of a benchmark, only in the sense that we now are starting to see staff stability because we do have housing. We're not seeing the turnover that we've once seen. So my hope is that now that we've got that relative stability, and that with the subsequent grades as they come through and start to take the assessments, we'll start to see some uptick given the work that we're doing, and we're not having the turnover that we've had previously. So that's the other piece that I think we just need to be aware of.
May I add one thing? The other thing is, as Ms. Baca said, these students haven't taken this test since, what was it, 7th grade?
7th grade.
Because of COVID. So I also wonder, and that year before was kind of a bump because they weren't taking all of the sections, right? So we just have to see. keep doing the work that we're doing and see what happens. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much
Thank you.
for this, and I think we can move on. Next item, 15B1, discussion with regards LCAP, goal number 3. Superintendent Presta, take us away.
Yeah, thank you. So the board has decided, I think, very smartly to focus on a few of our LCAP goals during the year and to conduct discussions in an open board meeting where we discuss what the goal is, what some of the metrics are, and they've chosen certain metrics to focus on. So we are starting with LCAP goal number 3, which is develop systems that embrace inclusion, value diversity, and educate our community to confront and dismantle systemic inequities to bring about a more just society. So the board and I have chosen some metrics to look at. This is not inclusive of all of the metrics in goal 3. If you were to go to our LCAP on the website and look, there are many more metrics, but we decided that these were ones that sort of spoke to us and we thought we wanted to discuss. So we're bringing it here for the board to have a discussion. The administration, we did not create a presentation for it, but it's more a chance for the board members with Ms. Baca and I in the discussion as well, since Ms. Baca is, I would say, the primary person building our LCAP, to answer questions and discuss. So, President Lee, I'm not sure how we want to go about it. Do you just kind of want to start from the top and discuss what each
Sure, or we
metric is,
or even if each board member has a particular item, particular metric that they've got questions about or concerns about, we can just sort of open it up
however you want to
as
go.
well.
Yeah.
But, maybe I'll just kick off with one of the easier ones at the bottom. Second from the bottom, we talked about the equity walkthrough. And I've done this once before with Superintendent Presta last year, touring a couple of our school sites. And it's actually really interesting to be able to take a walk and look and visit classrooms and just observe, the work that we're doing in the classroom, to also just kind of see, what are the things being done that are helping to improve the work that we're doing with regards to this goal in terms of inclusion and diversity. Or is there something that's lacking in that we need to maybe rethink something in the classroom? It's really good for us as board members that can go in and just kind of go in with those eyes, just so that we can understand what's actually happening in the classroom rather than just the theoretical that we're hearing in the boardroom. So I would encourage my colleagues to go, set up a time with Superintendent Presta and go into a classroom. And I plan to do that this coming spring, but haven't had a chance to do it this time.
No, that was really good last year.
Can
And
I ask a question?
yeah, sure.
What is the difference? Like, did you just do a walkthrough, or were you doing a walkthrough, an equity walkthrough? And what is the difference?
It started off as a walkthrough, but it really became more of an equity walkthrough because I was actually going in looking to see sorts of the things that are working with regards to class makeup, given a particular subject matter being taught, being able to see the engagement of the students, which students were engaged versus students that were not engaged in looking at the makeup, again, depending on the subject matter.
So if I can answer too, because when we went, it was informal.
Yeah.
It was not a formal equity walkthrough. We discussed it and had like an equity lens. We were looking at makeup of advanced placement courses. What was the racial diversity or lack of, right, in those courses? So we sort of started talking about some things that were equity focused when we were going through our walkthroughs. This particularly in the LCAP goal, though, we are working with Courageous Conversation to create an actual tool.
Okay.
So that there is a standardized way. We can certainly go through walkthroughs and look for equity things, right? And that was very helpful, I think, for us to do that. But we're working with our Courageous Conversation consultant, I guess, to create a tool. So that work is ongoing. We have not finished with the tool. Similarly to how we worked with Courageous Conversation last year to create the equity lens tool, we're doing that with them now.
So I think it would be helpful in that to have one that is board specific. That board members should be looking for different things. We're not educators, right? So I don't know if we should be judging things like what does an engaged classroom look like? I don't know if any of us are qualified to make that determination, but I think that there is
Yeah, that's great feedback.
so I think there's other things that we can look for that could be helpful for us. I know that we were given an example of one when we were working with Nicole Anderson. You know, that was more along the lines of, you know, what's on the walls of the classroom. Like, can you tell by looking at the walls that the diversity of the school and the makeup of the school? You know, what is the feeling of walking through the walls? There's things like that. That was
Board focus.
that was more made for board members.
We don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Right. So I think Nicole Anderson had one.
Okay, very good. Yeah,
Great.
thank you.
And equity walkthroughs have not started to date in our district yet. Like set is when the tool is created.
Yeah.
Then we'll have those. Yeah.
Can you quickly, because I know that you and President Lee have been part of that first cohort. I went through the very intensive training. Can you just briefly tell us what an equity walkthrough is?
Yeah, I mean, part of it, I mean, Selima did mention some of it. You're looking at what's the stuff that's in the classroom. You know, does it look like the students that are at that particular school, for instance? We were at one site, at an elementary school site, where we went into a library that showed where they had a lot of books that were relevant to the makeup of the student population. So you can also see just in the way the synergy between some classes where the same material was taught, but the methodology was different, but then the makeup of students were also fairly similar in terms of the racial makeup of the students in those classrooms. So we were actually being taught to just sort of being able to see how the same thing was being taught across a couple of different classrooms, but with different methodologies, for example.
Yeah, I think it's more tied to, especially for board members, like I said, looking to see if more about the environment. And as one of our student trustees was speaking to earlier, does an environment that feels welcoming? Is it a place that students would want to come to? And this is looking at schools across the district, right? So, you know, does every school meet a certain standard in that feeling welcome? What's it like when a parent first walks on campus? Are they greeted? You know, what is that like? Is it easy to figure out information if you're on campus where you need to go? And this is not just based on race, but also, you know, other ways that students show up. You know, if you have a certain disability, mobility issues, et cetera, can you assess everything on campus? Has everything accessible? You know, do we have all the bathrooms that are necessary? Do we have ramps? If ramps are, there are certain areas that can't sort of close off to someone depending on how they show up. Can everyone see everything? Can everyone hear everything? You know, what's the bell schedule like? I know, you know, a lot of schools have talked about changing the bell set schedule because it's similar to how we regulate people in prison. So changing that up so it's, you know, not based on hurting, you know, but more in dealing with students as people, things like that. So again, looking at the library, is it reflective of our student population? You know, looking again, what's on the walls. So the school that we went to, you could tell right away that you just felt right away that it was a very welcoming. It was a community environment. That there was a lot of morale of the staff was high, even though they were. This was a school that I think was like 90% free and reduced lunch when it was easier to track in those days. At a 90% students of color. So normally, when you go to schools in certain neighborhoods who serve a certain population, it doesn't look like schools in a more privileged population. But this school, even though they were serving a certain subset of students, it was clean. It was well. It was a fantastic campus. Lots of engagement, lots of different things for students to do, lots of activities. It just, if I was a parent, I would want to put my student in that classroom. So, so you have that for one school, and then going to each school and making sure that they're all keeping a certain level of standard. Not meaning they all have to do the same thing, but no matter where the students go to school, they should feel welcome. They should feel reflected. They should feel accepted. They should feel like they matter. And so, I think we could take Nicole Anderson's templates, but,
Rebecca just shared it with me.
Okay,
She's
cool.
on it.
There you go. I knew we had it somewhere because I know
Found
she
it.
shared it with
Yeah.
us. We can modify it
Mhm.
for our schools,
Yeah.
and it could be a fluid document
Mhm.
because, something that we may think important, there may be other things that may be
Mhm.
important, and so another thing that you look at and something that we have really worked on is, community partners, and does the school have, what level of community
Mhm.
partnership, and do all our schools have equal access to
Mhm.
certain community partners, things like that.
No.
Thank you.
Else? And any other of the goals, metrics that are jumping out with anyone?
So I think it would be good to just have to make sure we all understand what each of these are. So the staff equity survey, just talking about like what it is
Mhm.
and what the plans are.
Okay, so, and I'm going to call on Ms. Baca to assist me because she knows more than I on certain of these. So the staff equity survey participation rate. So first of all, we decided to do the participation rate,
Mhm.
which is certainly one metric.
Mhm.
This LCAP is going to be finished at the end of this year, and we're going to be thinking about what we want to do in the next years. And we might want to look at what the staff equity survey is saying, but the place that we started was the participation rate. So last year, year 2, 2022, 23, the participation rate was pretty low. It was for the staff, I think it was 5%. Ms. Baca, is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah,
about 24 staff members completed the survey.
right. So our goal for 23, 24 is 70%. So clearly that's a big gap on just participation rate. And Ms. Baca and I were discussing, what we could do to raise that number just to get the data from the staff. And some of our ideas are around the number of questions. So redesigning the tool, we worked with Circle Up Education to create that tool. And it wasn't short. We happen to be Ms. Baca and I are working with National Equity Project, and we're doing work around student voice right now. And we created with our team of 5, I think a survey that had 2 questions. That's it. And we also asked the principals to provide time to ask their teachers to provide time. So the teachers at each of the schools decided what the best time to do it was, but we provided time for the students to do it. And already, I don't know what our participation rate, it's already 225 kids just in a couple of days. So thinking about how we administer these surveys and what questions we're asking. And so she and I were looking at the survey, and we've already come up with some ideas of maybe some different questions that we want to ask. But that's the staff equity survey participation rate. And some of the questions, Karine, on the survey, I forget now.
I know that our intent is to develop a parallel survey for staff and students to kind of see how staff perceives equity versus how students perceive
Mhm.
equity,
Mhm.
and see if there is a discrepancy. And if there is, why is that? And
Mhm.
find out more,
Mhm.
probably through listening sessions and things like that.
Mhm.
And so the 2 surveys will be, very similar.
Mhm. And we're going to work with the National Equity Project to help us. They're really, really good at this type of thing. And so we're going to work with them with our work this year on crafting a new equity survey for both staff and students.
What are the kinds of questions we're asking?
Yeah. So what are the kinds of questions that we asked on the one before?
So the one before, an example is my site administrators regularly receive anti-racism education and training. And then staff at my site regularly receive anti-racism education and training. So these were all based on the actions and services listed on the LCAP. So, and so we may change it a little bit. We don't know it yet.
Yeah. We realize that everybody may not know, that actually of the few people who answered, they didn't know, but their administrators were receiving regular training. So anyway, we're going to look at the questions, just make sure they meet. They're what we want to be asking.
And so this survey is already, it's going to roll out, or it's going to roll out.
Last year's, we're going to change the survey. We're going to update the survey.
Okay.
And it will be administered this year.
Okay.
And the desired outcome is 70% of the staff answering, which is a big leap from 5%, but we're going to try and retool the way we do it. Yeah. And then I would suggest that we want to maybe think about next year having more than just the participation rate. What are people actually seeing? Yeah.
All right, next item, educator equity rate, percentage of staff. Let's call it.
Yeah, so that's really just a straightforward percentage of more teachers that are not white, more minority teachers. I don't like saying the word minority.
Do we have a particular plan?
What's
I
that?
mean, is there a plan
Yeah.
we're working on specifically, or is it just any targeted types of
The microphone.
What's that?
any specific targeted types of
So I'm going to call on off the cuff Dana Lujan. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but she routinely is working with different ways of publicizing our jobs to a wider audience. I don't know if you're prepared to answer that at all, but if you have any ideas to share.
Sure, I'm
with
happy
the
to speak.
recruiting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can happy to follow up in a weekly recap as well. When I started, we have our traditional outreach methods, EdJoin, LinkedIn. And obviously, if we want to diversify the workforce, we need to advertise and do outreach to a more diverse population. So thanks to the partnerships with organizations like Courageous Conversations, we've also advertised through organizations like Work Wider, which is a collection of organizations that are committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. In addition, we are part of a listserv that posts our open positions to historically Black universities. So that way we are directly outreaching. Thanks to our partnership with GeoVisions and also Career Studios. Thank you for your support with both of those organizational agreements. It does look like our district will also have the opportunity in the near future to directly recruit in other countries. So we are looking to expand our outreach as much as we possibly can.
Thank you. Off the cuff. The other thing is it's not just about recruiting people in, but retaining people, right? And so I think that is part of the larger work that we're doing with Courageous Conversations and with National Equity Project, and just the work that we are focused on in this district, allowing not only students to feel safe and welcomed, but staff. And it also has to do with paying people living wages. And so, I mean, it's multi-layered. But
For this one, because I know the baseline is the 40% of current staff. And I'm not asking to change it now, but I'm thinking looking forward, is it looking to have it be more reflective of student population? So
yeah,
for example, we can have, because I like the word underrepresented, is different from minority, right? So employed staff members who are historically underrepresented education, there may be certain groups. So, women can be labeled as a minority group, but that doesn't mean they're underrepresented.
Right. Yes.
So,
I hear you.
looking
Looking ahead, we,
mhm,
yeah.
to see if we have staff that's reflective of our community.
exactly.
And then, what do we need to do to recruit? So I'm glad, just,
Mhm.
anecdotally looking,
Mhm.
Black and African American teachers, especially male, are underrepresented in
Mhm.
education.
Mhm.
And I would not saying not to do that,
Mhm.
but also looking at who are our students in the
Right.
classroom and,
Yeah.
making sure that we're not just focused on
Mhm.
one race.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I think you're going to provide an update. I anecdotally see a change.
Mhm.
So when I, am in Westmore, there's lots of new teachers in Westmore and they seem very representative of the community there. So we'll see what the updated numbers show us, but I do think that we are making progress.
All right. Reduction of disproportionality of discipline.
So this is, you'll see, we picked this as something to focus on, and it's actually not in the LCAP anymore because we no longer just are in disproportionality. That said, so we don't have data for this. And the board and I picked this, and I spoke with Ms. Baca, and I was like, how come it's blank? She's like, because we're not in disproportionality anymore. That said, I do think there's a desire on our part to make sure that discipline is not disproportionate, right? So just because a marker doesn't say that, we want to make sure that we're not. So disproportionality of discipline means that, certain groups of students are disproportionately represented in referrals for discipline, right? And so it's not that we can't get this data, but it's not part of the LCAP. Ms. Baca, we can still pull this information. Yes. So maybe we can pull the information in February just to let the board know about the number. Okay. Even though it's not part of what's formally in the LCAP
When
anymore.
we say it's not disproportionate,
Mhm.
at the last meeting where we had suspension data, it was still overrepresentative.
Yes. We just didn't qualify from.
For the CSAs,
Yeah.
significant disproportionality plan from the state.
Yeah.
Okay.
We just aren't in trouble for
From
it.
the state.
Yeah.
Anymore. Okay.
Right. So, so that data isn't in the LCAP anymore. That said, I still think it's important data.
Mhm.
So we can still pull
Especially
the data.
because we are still, there's still overrepresentation.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right? It's just the state's not calling us out.
You
for it.
are correct. Mhm. Yep. Yeah.
All right. Sticking with the discipline theme,
Mhm.
discipline referral rate of all students.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the pilot school?
No.
Would you?
You said
Oh, what's
slow
it?
down.
Oh, slow down.
Are we talking
Okay.
fast? All right.
Yeah. So discipline referral rate of all students. So that's not just talking about disproportionality of referrals, but this is the rate for all students. And Ms. Baca, can you talk about the one school? I'm talking quickly again. Would you please talk about the one school that is piloting this, please?
So last year, Terra Nova High School piloted using Synergy for their discipline referral. And I spoke with Miss Carey, and it's actually it wasn't much change of a practice because teachers before would fill out a Google form, but now they do it through Synergy, and they actually like it because they don't have to double entry. Basically, one of the downside is pulling the reports were much harder. So as far as, ethnicity and how many students were referred by the teachers, but upon talking to her, our IT department would probably be able to create a report and a query based on that. And so tomorrow my plan is to talk with Mr. Meyer over there and ask his team to develop a report. And we will be asking all of our school sites to basically implement the referral system through our student information system.
And we want to see an overall reduction in referrals. Mhm.
And lastly, the student equity survey, I think we touched on it earlier, but is there anything more to add with regards to that?
Just that we are creating the student equity survey. The survey that I referred to, that our equity inquiry team that's working with National Equity Project just created and is asking all the students to answer, isn't this full equity survey. We are asking students about whether they feel safe. I forget the exact phrase, but whether they feel safe, accepted,
Seen, if they
seen,
feel heard, seen, and valued.
Yeah.
And give examples.
Yeah. And so many students, as I said, have already answered that. And we've gotten a lot of really thoughtful answers from the students, really thoughtful answers. And it's going to inform our equity inquiry team about what we're going to push further on and having some student focus groups and student discussions. So that is one thing that's not this student equity survey. We're going to create a more robust equity survey for all of the students to fill out. And as I shared, we're going to work with the National Equity Project on that. Perhaps Nicole Anderson has some ideas for that as well. So, but it was our plan to work with National Equity Project.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
One of our main goals this year is really, one of our main goals, not just this year, it's really important to get student voice. It's really, really, really important to hear what our students are saying. We really don't know what their experience is. We think we know. We think we're very available. Oh, they feel this way. It is not always how the students feel. And they are our reason for being here. So we're very focused on that.
Question to the student trustees, because that's one of the main reasons why you're here, is to help us understand, we are all in these board meetings as adults trying to figure out how to get more engagement from students to be a part of this process. So, do you have, what are we doing wrong? Or things we can be doing better? Are there different ways to engage? Have you seen things that have worked to get student feedback and engagement on issues that we talk about here?
So from what I've seen on my school, it kind of depends on the students too, because we have advisory and all advisories are different. And in my advisory, it's like half and half. Half of the students like to participate, like to look at what the advisor is telling, and others are just on their phone, not caring, not letting the teacher speak. And one of my teachers, is just not excited about its advisory. And I know the students that are there, and I talk to them because they're my friends, and I'm like, he's a really nice teacher. Respect him, give you guys, give your attention to him. But still the teacher's not excited. So it kind of depends on the students too.
Anyone else?
I was also going to say, I think if you wanted more feedback from the students, it would be really helpful if maybe you guys or another type of official would come into advisories, because Oceana also has advisory on Friday, just to sort of communicate the importance of their feedback to the district from somebody who is basically on the front lines. Because I know when people come in to advisories or they even watch videos of just local people who are doing things to make a change, they tend to be more involved and give feedback. Also communicating with administration on school campuses regarding sending things out to certain advisors, like surveys or polls, anything like that, would probably receive a lot of participation.
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with that. I go to Westmore High School, so we do not have an advisory at our school. But I do think one way to get student feedback at Westmore would probably be through either English classes or social studies classes, like history classes, because that's normally where we do most of our communication.
Great feedback. Thank you so much. All right. Nothing else. We'll just move on. So
But
next,
before we move on, I just want to check, like, does everyone think they have a really good understanding of each of these things now? Do you at least have a base understanding of what each of the things are? Are there other questions that you have that maybe need to be answered to help you with assessing all of this at the end of the year?
No, I feel like it's pretty straightforward after everything you talked about. Yeah.
This is a helping session. I don't have any questions right now.
all right. All right, moving on, item 15B2, board policy update, BP 0415, equity superintendent Presta.
Thank you, Superintendent Lee. I'm promoting or demoting you to superintendent.
Yeah, no thanks.
Demoting.
Yeah, no.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, President Lee. So the board has been working on really drafting a wholly new equity policy. So what we have attached today is a draft of our current equity policy, which I happen to print up because I'm kind of a Luddite and like papers, was just really a one-page equity policy that was really mostly just California School Board Association recommended language. Nothing wrong with it, but not very specific to our school district. So the board felt very strongly that equity is really one of our primary goals in our district, and we really needed to create a very robust policy. Vice President Kalima Salahuddin worked very hard on this and put a lot of her personal time into it. So I want to publicly thank you for that. And our school board met in a few Saturday sessions and also devoted a lot of their personal time to it. So I want to thank all of them for this. So really before you is the current equity policy, which, and I will let Trustee Salahuddin talk more specifically about it. I will invite you to, if you would like. There's a preamble that talks about what the board is committed to. There's a paragraph around our equity lens tool, which our district equity leadership team created last year. So we included that. And then there are many other sections: professional development, leadership, teaching and learning, and it goes on and on. I think, Kalima, I'll let you speak to it more if that's okay, since you were a primary drafter.
No problem. So I applied and was accepted to School Board Partners, which is an organization that's specifically targeted to help school board members do their work. So normally I just use the California School Boards Association as my main place for professional development. But CSBA is a whole lot, and that's a whole other conversation. But sometimes their goal is more about making money and less about helping school board members. So one of the large areas or the places of purview for school board members is policy, and in particular writing it. And we rely, again, CSBA, I think, probably doesn't want school board members writing policy, because then we wouldn't pay for their services to provide policy. So they don't really have any professional development or instruction on our role in actually helping to develop policy. So School Board Partners has a whole section on how to do it, and then they provide you support, so personal one-on-one support to help you do it. So I want to thank Ben Clavane, who was the person that helped me and really walked me through it. It was I like to speak. Writing is not something that I'm really comfortable with because I have dyslexia. So it was a vulnerable place to write something. And then he was very liberal with that red pen, and he would go in and just mark it up and tell me what I was doing wrong. But I'm glad that I was able to get through it. And I'm thankful for all the feedback from all of my colleagues on the board and from our administration. But really my goal was to try to write something that was anybody can go in and understand what we're trying to do. And I was very clear on equity, very clear about what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve. And so not just putting what we want to do, but also how we're going to hold ourselves accountable. I'm glad that that I was able to do this and I was given the space to be able to do it. And I'm just very happy after many years of wanting an equity policy that we finally have one. So, yeah.
Right. Opening up to the board for any comments or questions with regards to the equity policy.
This is a long time coming. I remember when we were stuck at home and still having these conversations and having Nicole Anderson work with us and having student trustees working with us on it and many sessions and yet we couldn't quite get it going. It was just conversation starters, you know, really what is equity? And, you know, Ms. Salahuddin, even one of our main leaders in this, I really want to thank you. Because when you say that equity is important to you, you look at your life, how you've lived your life, you live it. And I don't know how you, I mean, everything you do, I just admire you so much. And I want to thank you for putting your heart into this and taking us with you. Because it's not easy. This was not easy for any of us, but you made it easier for us, you know, and I just want to thank you for that.
All right, my pleasure. I would also like to say that it was made easier too because of the foundational work that was done by administrative staff. That I was able to, like the equity tool was already built and we already had our equity statement and then building off of the, you know, just looking at the LCAP, I used the LCAP a lot for the structure. So a lot of the we just needed to write it all down. And it was all out there.
Sure. I just want to say that it was an honor being part of a team that really put this in the forefront and focused on it as hard as they did and put in that hard work. It was, you know, coming from a time when I was growing up where equity wasn't really something that people ever talked about to putting this out there the way it is and taking everybody into account. And like you said about, you know, how much heart you put into it, you could see it every time you come in and you talk about education and school and everything. It's really heartfelt with all you guys. And it's a privilege to work with you guys and be a part of this. Thank you.
I don't think I can, right now, be as heartfelt as my colleagues who have spoken, but I can be as honest as another one of my colleagues who's not here tonight and just say, yeah, this is really tight. And I think that we keep grinding like this, keep putting in that work. It's super cool. Thank you.
Are you channeling Dante?
Yes, I am.
Have a burrito in your hand for that.
I will also say that there was a reason why there was a gap, right? It's helpful for us that we have a collaborative board that puts the district and the students first.
Yes.
So we didn't have that before. So it was impossible to focus on this because we were focusing on just being functional through chaos. So that was the other piece of this that I'm very thankful that we have a board that works together and does their job. So.
Okay.
That's the truth. We spent a few Saturdays spinning our wheels.
Yeah.
Whole days.
Yeah.
So that's a very big statement, a very big true statement. Yeah. I'm grateful for you guys.
Yes, I am. Well, I just echo sentiments. Thank you so much, for the work you put into this. And I mean, I know you've been talking about this for so long and the equity journey you and I took personally going back 5 years now when we started with some of the initial training. And, when you look at this now and the fact that we can talk about this with ease, just to be, look at the conversations we've just had this meeting about equity, not just the policy, but just everything else, which we couldn't have had in recent years. And thinking about where, times, at least for three of us here who've been on for a while, how long of a journey it's taken for this district to get to a place where we're ready to talk about equity so openly and honestly. So the time is right for this policy to be done the way it has been. Thank you so much for your hard work on this, Kalima. And I'm grateful to also just the collaborative spirit of my fellow board members over these past several Saturdays that we've discussed this as well. So I know it's just seems like a love fest today, but I know it'll come back for approval at the next board meeting.
Correct.
So is there any other comments or questions that we have related to this? I think we're all feel pretty good about what's in front of us. Okay, great. We shall move on. Thank you.
Okay.
Item 16A1, contract with HKIT Architects for architectural services, Jefferson High School pool, gym, and theater. Deputy Superintendent Van
We do
Rapport.
have a public comment.
Okay. Let's go ahead and
No,
Let's do that first.
wait 1 minute. There's a public comment.
Presentation first.
let's do the presentation
Oh, you wanna
and we'll bring it back to the public comment after. Yeah.
Well, thank you, President Lee. Good evening, everyone. I am pleased tonight to say that the ad hoc subcommittee that was formed to study the question of whether to repair or replace Jefferson High School gym and pool is now prepared to make a recommendation. Trustee Tejada and Trustee Walker worked very hard on this committee, and we spent a lot of time together. So I want to thank you for your commitment and for your hard work. We have a presentation, I believe. Oh, I'm sorry.
Are you turning it over to them?
I'm sorry. I was just trying to get the presentation up so that we can.
Like,
Not yet.
What's happening?
Not yet. Not yet.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, thank you. Sorry for not.
Being prepared.
Yeah, so I think we were going to start with introducing who we have here tonight. We have our Director of Construction, Stephanie Phillips, and we have Jeff Evans. Sorry about that. From HKIT Architects. And of course, John Harrigan, the principal of Jefferson High School. And Ms. Phillips, would you like to start? Or I'm not sure if the trustees would like to start by saying anything, or if you'd like to chime in after Ms. Phillips. That's the stage.
On the subcommittee
The subcommittee one, yes.
No, let's do the presentation.
Okay. Who's got control of the slides? You?
Or you both.
Oh, do I too? How do I get control? Is that me?
Yeah, that's you.
Oh,
You have control.
fancy. Well, I apologize up front. I'm tired today and I drank some tea that was supposed to give me energy and clarity, and it gave me fog and sleep. So I feel a little foggy, a little sleepy. All right. Subcommittee process overview. So,
You want to just hold the mic? Just hold it.
sure. Am I on mute? Is that why?
The green light should be on.
Come on. All right. There we go. All right. During the district-wide needs analysis, it was discovered that Jefferson High School's gym and pool are on the AB 300 list for recommended seismic improvements. In addition, both would require significant ADA improvements. The pool was also being considered for a remodel due to its age and condition. We formed a subcommittee and held several meetings with the site stakeholders, which included the site administrators, PE teachers, athletic director, swim and basketball coaches, and maintenance and custodial staff. And we reviewed and discussed these possibilities, which was to fix only the structural issues at the gym and pool, fix the structural issues at the gym and replace the pool, and then replace both the gym and the pool. After much discussion, it was decided that replacing both was the best option. And that, I see, I just preface. So the recommendation was to replace rather than remodel. New gym, we wanted to preserve the historical portal, preserve the look and feel of the front of the building, improve the appearance and functionality. The new pool would be an outdoor pool and meet all competition standards, allow plenty of shallow area for swim classes. And then in addition, we wanted to also add a backstage area to the theater. So we're doing that as well. The proposed project is, well, you know what? I'm going to let you take it over from here.
Happy to do that.
Yeah, you're on.
Okay. I gotta decide where to turn. I'm going to turn this way.
Yeah.
So just to orient you, this is the circle that's out in front of the administration area. And then we can see the existing historic portal, which is here. And so what we're looking at is essentially the main level, which is at grade with that circle. And so when we enter our new gym and pool, we are entering into this level, and we have at this level the we have the locker rooms, and we have the dance room, and we have the classroom, and then we have the team rooms, and then we have a lobby just behind this historic portal that we're able to preserve. The three yellow cubes that you see are circulation stairs that go upstairs, where we have our new gym. There are a couple of driving forces for the design of the gym. One was to achieve 1,200 seats. Two was to be able to have cross courts that are regulation size. We don't have those now. And so in this configuration, we have a main court, and then we have two cross courts that can be used for either basketball or volleyball. By having the gym upstairs, we've also created a second lobby and a second set of restrooms and a concession area to serve that level. When the gym is upstairs, we also have the ability to isolate that level, but still use our team rooms and our locker rooms that are on the main level. And so we can sort of block off, if you will, that part. If we go back to the main level, as you know affectionately well, there's a hill here. And so as we go out, the grade is sloping down. And so the weight room then is a double height space that opens onto our sport court area. And so we have the potential for classes to have spill out into that sport court area that are using the weight room. As was mentioned, one of the other key drivers was to achieve not only a pool that was going to work for swim meets, but also a pool that's going to work for our physical education class that are using the pool to teach students to swim. And so you'll see in the pool kind of a large rectangular area, which is a shallow area. So our class of students can be in a shallow area, and that's separate from our 8 swim lanes. We've got a 20-foot pool deck on either side. And then we have a wet locker room that we spent a good bit of time talking about how that would function for PE and when that would function for PE. But in short, we have a place where students can hang up a towel, and then after exiting the pool during the gym class, they can go through. There's 10 different shower heads that can rinse off, grab their towel, and they can come on back to the regular locker room. We know that the swim meet days can be a day where there are a lot of people around the pool. And so by locating the pool adjacent the sport court and having large gates on the fence around the pool, we can open the pool to the sport court. And so the swim meets can set up little tents, or they can have little stations for their teams, what have you. There can be spillover space there as well. And then as we get to the end, we have the utilities that service pool equipment. So this pool is outdoors. Probably should have said at the beginning, this pool is outdoors. It would be heated, obviously. And so this is at grade with kind of that surrounding area and sport court. Yeah, see that there. Okay.
Can I ask a question real quick about why the pool being outdoors, considering the climate in Daly City? Why would that be an outdoor pool?
Good question. So we do have in the district outdoor pool as well as indoor pools. And one of the big drivers is cost.
Yeah.
This was a cost-effective way to achieve providing the food. And then we think we can still provide comfort to the swimmers by having that area having heating blinds.
Kaplan Bay High School also has an outdoor pool. Terranova. And they're both and Terranova, right? And they're both very well liked by the people who use them.
Yeah, the swimmers will be fine. If you're cheering, you're doing it on, bring a jacket. Like, bundle up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's anything.
Yeah. It's cold.
Okay.
Any other questions before I turn to the slide? All right, so next slide is impact to the bond program, and I'm gonna turn this over to Tina. I'll set you up with that one right there.
Right. Thank you. So this project is a bit more than what we had budgeted when we talked last about our bond program. So I wanted to refresh your memory that when Dale Scott was here from our financial advisors last, he explained the way that the bond program could work by keeping tax rates the same and still generating more revenue for the school district. So we passed a bond in 2020 for $163 million. And this shows that if we went out for another bond in 2026 or 2027 or 2028, we could generate more revenue while keeping the tax rate exactly the same. And so that's why I feel comfortable recommending this, that we move forward with this project, even though it's higher than what we had budgeted. So if you could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so what we had budgeted for the gym and pool, and this was just to do the structural work and the accessibility work, was $50 million. As was mentioned, the subcommittee decided that that was not the best use of funds because you would be putting in a lot of money and not see a lot of improvement for the students. And the theater, we had originally budgeted $6.25 million. The new proposal is $97.4 million. That includes the gym, the pool, and the theater. It's $41.15 million higher than it was. But there are some things we can use to offset that. First of all, we have about $5 million in developer fees that would be appropriate for this project, as well as our partnership with King Consulting they think that we will easily get at least 13 million, maybe closer to 18 million in seismic grants to offset the costs here. And there's a detailed tab there, but what that shows is that we can afford all of the projects that we proposed, but it would just be over a span of time with the new bond as well. And we would not likely get through those projects by 2028 anyway. It would be the right timing for that new money to come along with the last of the projects from the initial master plan and just in time to start a new master plan. So this is why I think that financially, this is a good decision. I think now if Trustee Tejada or Trustee Walker, if you'd like to add anything about the committee's work or, what your thoughts are before we wrap up the presentation, since you were part of it.
I go first. I think this is a really special project for the district, for Jefferson High School. It costs more than we thought it would cost. However, I think it delivers what the students need at Jefferson. We get more functionality, we get the infrastructure we want. I feel like we're not losing anything, and we're gaining, again, functional space. I don't know about ADA compliance, but I feel like it's ADA easier, ADA better service. I feel like it brings quality to the physical education programs and to the competitive programs. I'm really pleased with it. Along the way, we even looked at an option that had a 94-foot basketball court, which would have been really cool, unless you're repping. But I really think this gives us what we need. I was really pleased to be a part of the subcommittee.
Yeah, so I grew up at Jefferson. My entire family went there. And so part of my involvement was that I have a very strong bond to the school. And what I needed to do was get over my sentimentality, and which was not easy. But also in talking to stakeholders, many of whom work at Jefferson and are also alumni. We shared a lot of the same things, but what did it for me was, well, partly that we had a fresh board member with us. And then I could see things through his eyes. But when we toured, the first thing we did was tour the gym and the pool. And I love that gym. I've sat in those stands at rallies. I've watched my daughter play basketball. But when I walked all around and they were pointing out all these, I thought, how is this thing staying up? How many more patches do you have to have up here when it's not even, you're looking at the spackle and it's not, I mean, it's almost like, well, let's just do it again, and put it up there. And things that were boarded up and painted over. And it was, and then you're going through the mind of someone who built it in the 30s, and it was like Winchester Mystery House. You're like, well, keep on building. And you're like, where are we now? What do they use this for? And you see the things there that were, like basketball scorebooks from the 80s. And I recognized all of the names because I was probably one of those people keeping score. And then the pool. Wow. And it already been power washed. And I thought, this was power washed? And a lot of it just didn't make sense. And I thought, when I went to Jeff, I always felt like we never had nice things. Well, and it's not just about having nice things, it's having safe things. So I would love for visiting teams to say, oh man, we're going to go to the Jeff Gyms, to stay. But also something alumni can be proud of, voters can be proud of. But these are classrooms, and that's the thing I cannot forget. And these are classrooms, and also there are other students from other teams coming. You got to keep them safe. I'm telling you, that walkthrough was an eye opener for me. And tons of meetings, tons of calls. I renewed my notary license, and right afterwards, I'm in the parking lot on a Zoom call with everybody. Tireless. Thank you to HKID, Stephanie Phillips, helping us through all this, the entire process. Mr. Harrigan, of course, and all of the staff at Jefferson who really I think we had a great group of representation who were very, very honest with us. And I was very thankful that
they shared how they felt about many different options.
Should we?
If I may follow such eloquent words with just a point about accessibility, and I apologize in my attempt to be brief, I didn't highlight that there are elevators that connect the main level to the gym level. And then there's a separate elevator in the back that connects the main level to the floor of the weight room, but also to the sport court and pool. And so we do have accessibility throughout. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought we did, but I it's in the picture. Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to add one thing. We've been talking a lot about equity tonight. And to me, I want to really thank our whole team, because this was something like that felt like the most glaring equity issue, the most very, very obvious equity issue, one of the biggest in our district, when our other high schools have beautiful gyms, beautiful pools, beautiful spaces, and Jefferson didn't. It was just so glaring. So I'm grateful to the subcommittee and to all of our staff and to HKIT, to Mr. Harrigan. I know this is going to be hard. Like it's not nothing for a school to not have access to all this stuff, to the whole process, that it wasn't just a slam dunk that they might even want to do this, frankly. So I'm really grateful that that we're doing this, because it's really what our students deserve. And I just basically want to say thank you.
We do have some public comment, so let's take that public comment right now.
Natalia wanted to say something.
Well, I think we should probably.
Let's do public comment and come back.
sorry.
We'll come back for the board discussion.
You got
Thank you.
Have Mr. John Falabella, and you would come to the presenters table. Yes. And you would have 3 minutes to talk.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. In the interest of time, I'm prepared to take this. A common theme from this evening has been equity and being equitable. I just want to open with that. But my name is John Falabella. I'm a Jefferson High School graduate of the class of 95. I've been coaching basketball at Jefferson since 1999. So this was my 25th consecutive year of coaching at the school. I was hired as a teacher in 2006 and have been the athletic director since 2010, boys varsity coach since 2013. I'm here tonight to talk about the proposed plan for the gymnasium at Jefferson High School. The current gym at the time of demolition would have stood for 88 years. And I have to assume that the next one will also stand for another 88 years or longer. The current plan calls for an 84-foot court, the minimum size for a high school basketball court. I don't feel that plan is adequate plan for Jefferson. The 84-foot court would give Jefferson the shortest court in the district. Terra Nova Westmore would have longer courts, which are approximately 94 feet. And I believe Oceana would as well. While Jefferson has been traditionally dominant in the sport of basketball, partially due to the size of the court, which has provided a distinct home court advantage. Also, the new plan calls for a bigger pool, expansion. New plan calls for a bigger dance facility, expansion. A bigger weight room, expansion. A larger theater, expansion, but is calling for a smaller gymnasium, a reduction. I just want to make sure that there's equity for all athletic facilities throughout our district. Jefferson basketball has a tradition of winning, dating back to its first championship team with John Madden and Don Delbon in 1953. Since then, there have been over 20 league championships and the 1988 Division III state championship. Furthermore, since I've taken over our team, we have won 4 league titles over the last 7 years while making the CCS playoffs in 9 consecutive seasons. I feel that a new plan for the gym and that 84-foot court would take away our home court advantage. The student athletes that enroll at Jefferson are usually smaller and faster type, and a longer court would continue to provide the home court advantage that has allowed us to dominate the sport of basketball over the past 70 years. In 2017, Half Moon Bay, which normally gets a taller, slower athlete at their school, built a state-of-the-art basketball facility that was 94 feet in length. They actually abandoned that facility after 2 years because the longer court gave them a disadvantage. The court that is currently planned would do the same thing for us, and I just wanted to make sure that we do it correctly the first time, since we only have one shot to get this right, and to make sure that it is equitable. I hope that this is taken into consideration when the final proposals are designed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks, John. All right, we'll open it up for further discussion amongst the board. Trustee Alvarado.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I won't be probably at Jefferson anymore. So this would be like a project for future generation. And I would like to say that school is kind of like a second home for students because people that are on the teams and stuff, they stay late on school, like practicing and stuff like that. And I would like say that a safe environment would be better for the students and also like a better place. Like they see this beautiful gym, they're like more excited and more motivated to practice and, give all they got.
You'd have more pride.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. I just want to kind of echo what you said. I'm an old Jeff head myself, and back in the '90s, I think that we could have used that retrofit back then. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited to kind of see where this goes. The only question I really had is what do you do during the duration of the project for the teams that are supposed to call that place home? Like, seems like it's going to be about a 3-year, maybe 4-year project almost based on the timelines. That's a whole class.
2 to 3. Yeah, 2 to 3. It's probably like a year out from drawings. And
about a year out from permit submittal, and the goal would be to start construction. I have to get my years right. It's hard to believe this is almost.
I know.
Yeah, but 2025 summer with abatement and demo, and then at a minimum 2 years from there, and potentially 3, depending on whether we phase the pool as a second phase to allow us to have some space for potentially temporary facilities or continued use of the blacktop. But it's going to be a long construction process. There is the auxiliary gym. I'm not sure if you wanted to share.
I mean, we also, in putting together HKIT's proposal, I asked them to include it as doing it for the long duration, and that if we decided to try to phase both buildings at the same time, that that cost is isolated and we could get a credit back. But we might want to take the long haul just so that we can use some of the space to, because there's not a lot of what they call in construction terms lay down area for us to stage things. So it's going to be, I think that the toughest part of this project is going to be the logistics. I've accounted for some temporary facilities for locker rooms, like a portable that will act as a locker room, and portable bathrooms. And we're just going to, it's going to be John and his, team and I sitting down and trying to figure out logistics of how to get this done. And I've actually shared with Tina as well, is in the bidding process, that could be part of the criteria, is to have bidders actually tell us how they can do this in a streamlined way that's to our advantage. That might be one of the criteria that we judge somebody's bid. So I mean, the short answer is it's going to take probably, 3 or 4 years from now before we're done. But I think there's ways that we can be strategic and try to, figure out ways to streamline things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, if you look at the budget, the estimates, part of the estimate was the temporary housing for our athletics, for PE. So those were items that were included in the total dollar amount. But it is like, what's really hard is, yes, this is going to be super disruptive to Jefferson High School for many years. But when you think about it, what we're getting in return, I think, is what our kids need and is what the facility needed to be. And that is going to be like a theme that I have to keep repeating to myself as we're all inconvenienced by construction and by the change to campus, and the noise and the dust and the sound and the transportation and all those things. But when we looked at the facility itself and we did the tours and is there a way to make what we have now functional for the next 100 years? Is there a way to make it functional spaces that are safe? And I think everybody left that initial meeting when we were laying out all of our priorities. What were our needs? We started with what do we need? And we all left thinking, yeah, the need is to change. And so it is going to be hard, especially as we try to maintain all of I don't want to call it expansion of athletics, but as we add teams to accommodate that. So this year we have 3 basketball teams for the boys, 2 for the girls. We're talking about potentially wrestling. And so how are we going to manage all of that? Because it's important for kids to have those opportunities to participate, and the engagement and equity and welcoming, and that they have something there for them. So that is going to be a balancing act that we're going to have to figure out. But we have a little bit of time to start to strategize how we're going to accommodate. We do have the practice gym that was put in a number of years ago, so that helps a little bit. But we are going to have to make some adjustments for sure. But between PE and dance, and all of these things are going to be impacted.
Yeah, no, I agree. Thank you. It needs to happen.
Yeah,
I totally agree with that. I want to see it happen. My worry is that, and it's just a concern that, enrolling students may not want to go to Jeff because they're not going to have a place to call home, to play basketball, to do their swimming. It's just, there's a lot, a lot of kids really look forward to playing sports for their school, and having a facility to do that in. So having a plan for that, I think, is just as important as building the building itself.
Yeah.
In the meantime, it's just, and I understand you guys are working on it. I was just curious.
Yeah. One thing that Jeff kind of pointed out to me, at least, or all of us, I guess, is the construction timeline for a remodel was going to be longer than the rebuild potentially, because it takes so much longer to get all the DSA approvals and just the time it takes to work within the structure.
Yeah.
But I do hear what you're saying, and thank you for calling that out. That the recruitment piece, the new student piece, is an important consideration, and that is something that we're going to have to sell. Hey, you're not missing out on your opportunity to represent Jeff or to play for Jeff. That is a good call out. Thank you. That's going to be something that we have to do. One thing that we didn't highlight that I really think is so exciting to me, no, but that is super exciting as well, is that when the pool, the wet locker room was being designed for the pool, and also the locker room for our students, that we had consideration, and there is planning for all gender changing spaces and restrooms. And that's baked into the facility itself. So it's not an afterthought. It's not something that we're going to have to go open some special room, and kids aren't going to feel weird about going and using it. It's going to be on the same place. Students aren't going to have to enter the gym as either male or female. They're going to be able to enter the gym as a student and then be able to do what they need to do to get ready for PE. And that's really cool. And that's something that we didn't talk about, but I think is really one of the highlights for me about the new facilities. So I just wanted to throw that out there because we hadn't hit it. But it's a really important thing for our students. But thank you. And I didn't say thank you. Thank you for taking this on as a project and considering it and recognizing that there is the need at Jefferson and that our students do deserve nice functional spaces and spaces to be really proud of, and that are modern and are really cool. And so thank you for doing that. I know it's a chunk of change, and it's appreciated by staff too. So Thanks.
So tonight, we're just, we're going to be voting on the proposed contract with HKIT. But the design itself still has room to change.
Does it?
Well, yes,
In theory.
Keep it on. Yeah, it's okay. Just keep it.
Yes, it does. At cost. I mean, it would, if we were to move forward with a 94-foot court, it would probably cost us approximately $4 million. Which would obviously, be an additional cost than what we think we're going in for. In addition to that, there would be some additional cost to draw more things. There would be more structural drawing. Not all of the consultants under HKIT would have an ad service, but there would be an ad service for changes because of the larger building. So that's something that we could do as a ad service change order. And then when we go to bid, knowing that it's going to be $4 million more. So it's not in stone right now tonight if we decide that we want to change that.
But I would like to say that I think if the board wants to still consider a different design, that we should have that discussion tonight. Because the longer we draw this out, the more costs escalate and the more, that it's difficult to strategize around timing. And so, yeah, I think that there's a couple different ways we could do it, right? Is that we could approve this contract and then have Jeff come back with a change order if that was determined at a later time. We could not approve this contract tonight and approve a different contract at our next meeting that includes more services. Yeah, I think that's kind of your two options. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I agree. I want to second what Tina just said. I mean, I think that their goal here tonight was for you to approve this contract and this plan. That was the intent. So I think it would behoove you to have that discussion now if you want them to go back to the drawing board.
Okay. Opening it up. Thoughts with regards to the options that are before us.
Where did you get your numbers from, the ROMs for the project? I mean, what is that based on? Those aren't actual bids based on drawings or anything that have been done. So there's got to be room in there to kind of fit some changes or some, something that could accommodate, no, not actually value engineering, but I mean, these aren't hard numbers. They didn't come from a contractor. I mean, you're putting together a ROM based on some preliminary drawings. So, when you start putting that stuff out for bid, you're going for competitive bids. I'm sure there's going to be room in there to make up some of this, if it's over budget or if it's under budget or whatever. I mean, it could be under budget too, or whatever the case may be. But you mentioned a $4 million price tag on adding 10 extra feet onto the court. And you had that number pretty quick. Where'd you get that from?
About $1,100 a square foot.
So you're just basing off of square footage.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that, and I added some escalation and some soft cost.
Mm-hmm.
So the square foot number was, I believe, 2.6-ish. And then that didn't include any escalation, which we're going to have to account for potentially like 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And then I put some soft costs because there's other things that come into play, like special inspections, their costs, legal costs potentially. There's other soft costs that aren't accounted in that number. That number is just a construction number. Yeah. So I did that today.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said,
yeah.
these are just raw numbers. I mean, they're not
Yeah.
based on anything that's drawn up yet. So I mean, I think there's room to change something. if it
Well,
needs to.
yes and no. The numbers that he gets are actually from a company called Cummings.
Okay.
Are you familiar with them?
No.
They're a very reputable estimating company. That's what they do.
Mhm.
So, and so far on the projects that I've done and with HMIT and that they've done the estimates on, they've been in that ballpark. So I don't think that things are too far off. I mean, that was kind of, we spent the last, I don't know, month of this kind of going back and forth, trying to
I was waiting for you to finish.
value engineering things and trying to like, oh, how about if we do it this way and how about if we do it that way? So I think we've kind of looked at the different ways that we might be able to make up some money. So I'm not necessarily sure that that's theory is going to hold true. But I mean,
No, I would second that. I was just going to point out, though, that we did only bring to the committee, we only brought, the 94-foot court with the mezzanine or the 84-foot court with no mezzanine. And we didn't ever look at an option that was an 80 or 94-foot court without the mezzanine.
right.
So yeah, I think so that's why we're coming now. And I think that we're hearing some desire from Trustee Tejada to allow for some more exploration of that option. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, yeah.
And just so I'm clear on the, to have the mezzanine or just the 94?
94 with no.
Okay.
What's the mezzanine?
So there was a different option where
Right.
it went.
What is it?
It would have the pit like it has the pit now.
Oh,
I see.
so just have a regular 94-foot court without the little, the unique design that we have in the cart. Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be eliminated. If we went to that size court, we wouldn't.
Either way, we're not going to have that.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
I see.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's no one else
No,
has it.
yeah.
We're not
That
going
makes
to lose any seating.
No.
No. But
That's
I have a question. So from what Director Phillips just said, it sounds like that $4 million cost. Jeff, does that sound pretty accurate to you? So I wonder, knowing that it's $4 million more, it seems like to me, certainly they can do drawings and do more research, but
Will
they
it
sound,
will it be $4 million more if you remove the mezzanine?
the mezzanine's already not in there.
Yeah, the mezzanine
Was already,
but they said, okay, so it was 84 with, okay, so I'm confused about.
so what they just shared was that this plan as is costs, whatever the estimate was, but to add the 10 feet to the court, it would add about $4 million more. They sound pretty.
Regardless of what happened, regardless of what we take out or believe in.
There's no mezzanine in there.
No, I hear you.
Okay.
I'm just saying, no matter, regardless of the different options that were presented, it's still going to be that additional cost, regardless of the different removing.
right, if we stick with what's proposed and just adding 10 feet.
That would be $4 million.
What's proposed, okay.
Right.
But if we change what's proposed,
Then who knows?
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
got it. All right, that answers my question.
And in which case, though, I mean, the accountant in me then says there's probably another bond project that we probably can't do because we're adding $4 million to this one.
Yeah.
So what's the opportunity cost of this, and what are we willing to sacrifice another $4 million project? I mean, for example, do we do the theater then? Does that come off the books if we do this? I mean, that's how I'm thinking about it. I'm not saying that would do,
Right.
but that's the line of thinking we have to put into this.
So I think that's a discussion you guys really.
So I'll just bring this up because I think this is the key information here. Oh, it's really small. There we go. So
what this shows is doing what it compares what we budgeted when we had our conversation in March to what the new budget would be with the proposal that's on the table. And it shows you that these projects that probably weren't going to happen for 8 years, Jefferson's baseball field, the SEEP building replacement, and the structural stuff at the bus garage is now getting pushed to the next bond because
I think we're jumping into something that I'm not really concerned about.
Okay.
I mean,
So, what I'm trying to say though is if you add $4 million to this project here at the top,
right,
what that does is it pushes, maybe one of these projects.
But I'm not discussing adding $4 million to anything. That wasn't my question.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I was just trying to clarify the proposals, right? So if you're saying, regardless of what the proposal is, it's still the additional form. That was my only question.
To get a
I
nice.
don't understand your question. I'm sorry.
They've
They've given a proposal tonight that is for the cost that is on the proposal.
I do, and I get that. What I'm saying is Tina said what was presented to the committee was 2 different proposals, one with this, one with that, but we never did this third option. And so my question was the third option also going to add the additional 4 million?
That was what I was.
That's what she was saying.
And so, and then I was done. Like I did. Yeah. So that's all I needed.
So the third proposal is the $4 million more.
Yeah. So I was good. Yeah, that's all I wanted to know. So my point is, equity is an equality, right? Equity is not equality. And so while I understand, the need to keep what we currently have, the 94 feet, or 9, whatever the 94 is, probably not feet, that, if we were to do construction on the other courts moving forward, they would probably shrink too because of we are constrained by dollars. So, I wish we could keep things the same. I wish we could do the standard, but I also, the additional money that we're already spending, it's rough for me to also add another $4 million if every option is going to be the additional cost on top of what we're already spending. So that's where
I just hate to jump the gun on this so early. When I feel like I'm sure you guys have dove into this pretty hard. You guys as a team have spent a lot of hours on it already, but I mean, like somebody had mentioned, I forget who said it. If we're going to do this, spend this much money on a project, I think we should do it the way it needs to be done, right? And if that's just your minimum regulation court, and if this is a gym that's going to be around for another 80 years, like John prefaced, then let's do it right. At least not be hasty and make a decision right now if that's the case. And let's see can you guys look at it one more time or something and see if there's anything that can be done to accommodate the extra 10 feet of hardwood on that upper level. You know what I mean? To me, it seems like, if we're stretching the building out 10 more feet, the whole building, I could see that that's a big added cost, but I'm specifically thinking of just hardwood floor on that upper level. I just don't, I know it's extra money. I get it. It's there, but I don't know. I just feel like, that's just my personal opinion on it. It's a big project.
The one other thing I want to point out that we haven't talked about is the. Did I lose control?
I took it.
Oh.
What do you want me to point at?
Oh, the sport court. So by taking away 10 feet, which we would be enlarging the whole building 10 feet structurally, in order to do the upper part, you have to have the bottom part too. So in order to do that, we'd be impacting the sport court. And I'm not either way on this. But that's something also for us to think about. So right now that's set up as a court that's usable. And soon as you take off, so I'm going to stand up if that's okay. It's just easier for me. So this is 25 yards, right? It is. Okay. So if you think of that, that's 75 feet. So if you take
and then you look at this and you take 10 feet off of that, that's a lot off of that court. So it's just something else to think about. I'm not trying to like add more stuff for you guys to think about, but that's something that should be also pointed out. So that sport court that we think that is going to be this great space might not be as great of a space. Mm-hmm. Anybody else want to add anything?
So where are we at? I mean, what do you guys want to do? Do we want to table this contract and have them bring it back to a future meeting?
No,
I think I'd like to approve the contract and then maybe we can meet again as a subcommittee if we want to make any changes, but
I didn't, okay, I'm sorry, but I mean,
but then hearing what more they have to say, and what our board members have to say has made, it's making me think a lot.
All right, so I guess we'll be looking for an ad service at some point down the road then on this.
But are we, I mean, I really think that, I think we just have to make a decision now because everything with construction, the more we wait, the more it costs. Like I understand the concern, but at the same time, that is the point of the subcommittee, right? The point of the subcommittee is to do this work and come to this recommendation. Unless there's a serious concern, I hesitate to change the recommendation given by the subcommittee. Was this not discussed at the subcommittee about the difference in the fee?
Not in that way.
Yeah, not to disagree.
Okay.
Not for that option, not for the option that we.
Okay, no problem.
Good night.
Okay.
All right, so there's a motion on, well, there's no motion yet. Is there a motion to approve this? Or what do you guys want? What do you guys want to do?
What do we want to do?
I'm looking to approve the project and the present, approve the project and the contract.
As it presently stands?
Yeah.
Is that your motion?
That you asked what do we want to do? I don't know. Do you want me to make a motion?
Do you want to make a motion?
I move to approve the project and the contract.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes 5-0. All right. Item 17, consideration of future agenda items. Anything?
No.
Okay. And so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 9:12 p.m.
Thank you.
Chloe left 1 minute early.